Hello, we've been learning about lines and colors in art class. Today we're going to try to create a piece of art based on the work of Piet Mondrian. Mondrian liked to use lots of horizontal and vertical lines in his art. Can you say horizontal? Flat like a table. And he liked to use lots of vertical lines in his art. Please say vertical. Tall like a building. And he loved the primary colors. Say primary colors. Red, yellow, blue. Primary colors. Red, yellow, blue. Today we're going to use a Sharpie marker to draw our horizontal and vertical lines, and we're going to use the primary colors of crayons, red, yellow, and blue, to color in some of the squares. But Piet Mondrian liked to leave some of his spaces white, and a few of them he would color in all black. So we have examples of those on the screen. Sometimes artists use a ruler to help them draw straight lines. I'm going to try that today. Now you can use your whole sheet of paper and go all the way to the edge, but I'm just going to draw a rectangle on mine. That way you can see how I am using my fingers to hold down my ruler. I spread them out wide so my fingers do not move. Then I take my Sharpie and I put it right up against the metal edge of my ruler. That's the side you want to be able to draw on, the side that has the metal edge. Then I'm going to move my ruler up, press it down with my fingers so it does not move, press my Sharpie against the side and draw a smooth straight line. The smoother you go, the better it looks with Sharpie. And for the other side of my rectangle, again, notice how I spread out my thumb and my fingers very wide to hold my ruler down so it does not move. And then I slide it, press and hold it down, and do the last side of my rectangle. So that's the start of my art. Of course, you have a sheet of paper about that size, so you could start right now with your ruler, now that you've practiced putting your fingers on it and holding it down so it does not move. I'm going to do some horizontal lines, and I always try to space it out. I want my lines to be as parallel as possible. For a line to be really horizontal, it has to be parallel with the bottom line so that they're the same distance apart all the way across. I'm going to add in a vertical line. And look, I can also use my ruler to help me space it out so it's nice and even from the line on the side. I'm going to add in another horizontal line. And now, another vertical line. Let me do a couple of vertical lines, actually. So your lines don't have to look exactly like mine. You might have more horizontal lines, or you might have more vertical lines. Some of them may go all the way to the bottom, and some of them may stop. Please look at some of the examples by Piet Mondrian for ideas. We should see lots of squares, and we should see lots of rectangles. Do you see any triangles in Piet Mondrian's art? No, there are only squares and rectangles. I can't wait to see how your piece turns out. I'd like you to have about 10 lines. You might have a little more or a little less. And then we can color some in. Some should be red, maybe one or two. Some should be yellow, maybe one or two. And some should be blue, maybe one or two. There need to be some white squares and white rectangles. And you could even have a black square or a black rectangle. I'm going to add one more vertical line. And now let's use some primary colors to color in a few of those squares and rectangles. I'm going to make this square blue. Sometimes in art class we don't worry about drawing inside of the lines. But I know Piet Mondrian would be very proud of us today if we stayed inside of the geometric figures. We stayed inside of the lines of our squares and the lines of our rectangles. So do your best to try to stay right inside of there. And I'm going to try to make my colors very dark. So I'm going to go over it horizontally as well as vertically and press down very hard. That's how I get a dark value of that color, by pressing down hard with my crayon. Let's add in a couple of yellow shapes. I always hold down my paper so that it does not move around. Just like I hold down my ruler by spreading out my fingers, I do the same thing when I'm coloring. I hold down my paper by spreading out my fingers so it does not move around. Let's add in some red. I'm pressing down hard with my crayon so I get a lot of that red pigment. It should be a deep, dark red value. And just for fun, I'm going to add in a black rectangle. You have to be very careful when you're coloring with Sharpie, because if you soak your paper, the Sharpie will bleed through and get ink on the table. You might have a couple of more blue rectangles or a couple of more red rectangles, but I like mine like it is. Piet Mondrian left a lot of white in his work, and that allows the color to have some emphasis. It makes us notice the primary colors in his artwork. I can't wait to see how yours turns out.